Alright, we're going to tie a Lady Amherst Spey. This is a fly pattern I came up with after tying many Speys. Just incorporates a few things I like all into one fly. I love Lady Amherst, and I know a lot of guys out there do too. This is a hooked version. We do it on tubes as well, but we're just starting with a Daiichi Alec Jackson Spey hook. I think it's a 2051 from Daiichi. We tie it on gold just for a little extra show, but you can tie it on any color you want, of course. I think we'll just start our thread, black 6/0, and we tie this fly actually in about I think it's 4 or 5 different colors, and it's basically the same pattern, just a variation on what color Lady Amherst you use or what color kind of the body is. Just tighten up a bit on this. Okay, now all of these flies start off with a tag. Use oval gold, oval silver tinsel, just to rib the tag. So we'll tie that in. Now, depending on what color version you're doing, we're doing the blue one here, so we're going to use a blue tag. We just use kind of a silver Dr. Blue floss. Right. We'll just take a 2-3 inches. Tag is just you know, maybe a 1/4 of an inch long at the most. Just tie that in. We'll start wrapping forward. Okay, we'll tie it off. Okay, we'll just reverse wind our tinsel just to secure that our tag section in case fish teeth get in there or anything like that. Just 3 or maybe 4 times around, tie that off. Okay, this is where the Lady Amherst comes in, tail section, and you don't need the really long. Well, you'll notice in Lady Amherst it's got, I'm sure many of you know this, it's got one side that's ridiculously long, okay, and then the other side's quite a bit shorter. So we'll just take a bit off the short side. I'll make a tail from this. Just maybe 10 strands or so. And we like to tie the tail pretty long because we're going to have all the long flowing Spey hackle. Long tail just kind of makes sense. We'll tie that in. Let's see, it just makes a nice kind of wispy tail. Okay. Next we're going to make a little ball of peacock curl. You want to try to get a bigger one. And we'll wrap from the back and then forward. Just try and get a nice kind of fuzzy ball there. You'll see this on quite a few Spey patterns. There is a name for it, I can't remember right now. I'm sure there's a better name than an ostrich fuzzy ball. Okay, so there we go. Now we're ready to start the rear half of the fly, I guess you could say. Gonna get some flat tinsel this time. This is number 14. Gold on one side, silver on the other. We'll put the gold side down because we're going to wind with the silver. So we'll tie that in. And we're going to go over with our black floss. Okay, you're just going to tie in the black floss here now. And the black floss is going to only be half of the body, but we want to make it nice and even. As even as possible. A lot of the old kind of purist Spey tires will tell you the thinner the body the better on a traditional Spey, and that's true. We even found it makes a huge difference for the kind of fishing we do, but it's always good to stick to just the the way things are supposed to be, I guess. This is just regular 4-strand black floss. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Okay, and I'm going to counterwind the flat black tinsel in. Try and get it even as possible. It's still something I find challenging sometimes. Okay. So there's the back half. Now at this point we're going to add our first heron hackle. And depending on the size of the hook, we've got a pretty big heron plume here. This one's I would say probably 8 inches long or so. This is our natural color heron. I'm going to need 2 of these. One actually gets wrapped through the rest of the body, and then another one goes on the collar, just to give that extra bit of fibers flowing through. So with the heron, we're just going to trim the fuzzies off. Okay, and we're going to tie this in by the tip. So with the heron, it's kind of a little difficult because the fibers are so long. But you want to get so there's just 2 or 3 fibers left at the tip. I don't know how well you can see that. There's 2 or 3, and we'll tie those 2 or 3 in just where those fibers meet the stem. We'll fold the tip back too. Fold it all back. Okay. And at this point we're gonna like use seal fur on our pattern. Use anything, any dubbing. Whoops, any dubbing of course that's available to you. If I could only find my heron or my seal. Oh, there it is. So we've got kind of a silver Dr. Blue color dubbing. Okay. And some guys will put this on with a dubbing loop. I don't bother. I find it stays. Well, I actually kind of like the fluffy look a little better, the kind of picked out look. So we just put it on right onto the thread. And I keep it kind of loose. You can see it's not really tightly put onto that thread. Just make sure all the heron's further back. We'll make a nice layer. Add a little bit more. And again, quite loose. We'll wind a bit more. And don't get too carried away if it looks like a terrible mess. By the time the heron's on and the collar's on, it's gonna look fine. You can see mine's kind of straggly, or scraggly, pardon me. Okay, I'm gonna take the heron and I'm gonna palmer it through. And this heron, especially the natural color that hasn't been dyed, it's really forgiving. It just kind of rolls with it. Everything usually goes in the right direction, which is pulled back from the fly. Okay, so that's the first plume. And you can see I roll it right back to where I cut the fuzzies off. So that's the first one. You can see it looks kind of crazy where everything's kind of sticking up and sticking down, but when we get the final collar on, everything will get pulled back a little bit. Okay, we'll get another heron feather and do the exact same thing, except not palmering it through the body. It'll just be right on as the first collar, I guess. Same thing, pull until you have just 2 or 3 fibers. Tie in. Now, this fly and a lot of Spey flies, it's really easy to make a ridiculously big head on them by the time you add all of the Spey feathers and then the collar or wing or whatever you're adding. So we keep it as tight as we can. Usually you can still see I'm quite a distance from the eye of the hook. Okay, I'll pull this heron back, pull the ones that are kind of hanging loose. You can see already it's starting to kind of drape back over the fly. Okay. At this point we're going to add more Lady Amherst in. It's kind of an underwing. Alright, at this point we're going to add some more Lady Amherst in as an underwing. This time I'm going to take from the long side. I want it to go quite far back. And again, maybe a little bit more than 10 or 15 or so, 10 or 15 barbs, I guess. Right. You want to size it out, not so it's the same length as the tail, but maybe a little bit further in. Okay, so there's the first wing. Now we're going to put a collar on. We like to match the color of the collar with the color of the body, or the seal stern, the color of the Amherst. So we've got some nicely marked mallard flank that's been dyed silver ultra blue. This new mallard we've come out with too, is the barring is way better than most standard mallard. It's almost the same as teal, very similar. So we'll pull back. Pull it all back so you have just a little bit of a tip. Okay, we'll tie it in by the tip. And we'll try and get the whole feather on if we can to get a really nice looking collar. Okay, and at this point we'll just grab everything and pull it back. Okay, we're starting to get there now. Hey, only 2 steps to go here. Over this wing, or the underwing of Lady Amherst, we're going to stack 3 purple pheasant rump feathers. Once we're going to take the biggest one, and I don't know how well you can see this, we're going to stack the next one on top, but a little bit lower. So you're actually making a longer feather by stacking 3 on top of each other, but just a little bit offset. So basically the 3 feathers are coming together and making one big feather. It's just kind of a little bit of a trick. Anybody who's dyed a general practitioner knows this one. Stacking 3 feathers will make one bigger feather. And we'll get rid of some of the fuzziness. Not all of it, because once it gets wet the fuzziness disappears anyway. So there's our overwing. Okay, and we'll get this right over top the Lady Amherst. And just wet it a little bit so we can see how it's going to lay. Let's start building the head. Alright, we'll just see what the other side looks like. And one thing with Speys, or our Speys anyway, is they look absolutely crazy out of the water. Once of course we get them in the water, it's a different story. Okay, and we like to add jungle cock to ours. Just makes it a little classier on a Spey fly, I think. Right, so 2 jungle cock nails. We cut them pretty long, almost an inch. We'll tie them right in, just as regular cheeks. You can see the head on this one, a little bigger than I would like it anyway. It's important to keep it far back. We didn't keep it far enough back. Right, you can see the top view there. So you got the nice, almost like a shell back on a GP, like I said, with the cheek and the mallard collar. Right, just check the back side, make sure everything looks the way it should. And at this point, we'll whip finish. Right, and of course we would glue the head. I'm doing quite a few tonight, so I'm going to glue them when I'm finished. But you can see if you pick out the body, if you look at it from the front view, you can see my jungle cock's a little bit off. My wing's a little bit crooked, but fish don't seem to care. Okay, that's the Lady Amherst Spey.